I'm recording to the cloud. Well, hello everyone. This is Mark Wriggle with John Lavenia's Success Mastermind. It is September 17th, 2020. Welcome everybody. I see Bill, Evelyn, Echo, Ivier, Jamie, Rose, Adrian, Nikki, Teresa. I'm going to go to the back side here. Hey, Marion Stewart's here. Who's on the back row hiding out here? Joe and Gina. Okay, who else? Carlene, Toba, Robin, Allie, Sandy. So today we're going to have a good time. This subject that we're going to talk about today, not that we didn't a couple weeks ago and kind of scared some people off, I think. Yeah, there's John. He's all like, oh, what are you going to do? Actually, we're going to talk about a subject that's probably near and dear to all of our hearts, and we have all experienced this, and I'm going to get right to it. I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to go right to share screen, and we're going to get on the topic. Integrity versus loyalty. I figure by the time we get done with this session today, it's going to be a food fight, because this is the kind of quintessential decision that many people make. I don't care if you are in marriage, if you're in business, if you're in the military, if you're in corporate America, wherever you're at, your friendships, this is an inevitability at some point in life. So just briefly, I have a short preface and some background information that we'll go through. I'll set the stage to talk about some definitions, and then we're going to open it up and get right to the meat of the matter. First, I'd like to take a few minutes and explain why and how integrity and loyalty fell together in my life. You know, when I was growing up, I was probably like most young guys. That's not something we necessarily think of a lot. However, as you get older, you find that there's a lot to be said about a person's reputation. Really, of all things that we carry with us through life, the one thing that we really don't want to have to lose is reputation. And there are a couple things that can really violate and destroy reputation, and hence integrity and loyalty. So this is June 10th of 1982. We'll go back a bit, and I was going through OCS. This was after my junior year in college at Western Washington. And it's a 10-week combined course. And what OCS is, it's a screening process. And if you look at the very last word in all those words, we are under a great deal of scrutiny. And integrity, and I know John, he wrote a book, Integrity is Everything, and it is, but there's something to be said about loyalty too. But loyalty to each person and to your significant other, etc. But anyway, in OCS, I started out in the first couple weeks. I'll never forget this: going to the East Coast and going to Quantico, Virginia, and I had not really ever experienced heavy humidity. Now, Evelyn's probably there from Florida going, Virginia. And those guys don't know humidity. Come down to Florida, we'll show you humidity. But in any case, that was the first experience, and my first experience of watching people literally with these 6 and 7, 8 foot plastic pools that kiddies can play in, full of ice water, with guys in their skivvies laid out, passed out with 2 IVs one in each arm, and they had experienced heat stroke. And these guys were trying to bring them back. That the level of physical activity that we were going through from 6 to 8 o'clock in the morning every single day. We were running 6 miles sometimes with 20 or 30, 40-pound packs and our weapons, climbing ropes, upper body development. It was a very, very challenging environment. And I watched people not be able to make it. They get NPQ, not physically qualified. They get injured. They break a leg. They twist an ankle. They can't recover. But along with that, we're also going through a lot of character assessments. And it's not just it's ethical sorts of character assessments. How do you work with others? Do you tell the truth? There are questions they ask when you get there. Have you ever participated in in certain types of activities? And that's a time, actually, believe it or not, that's a time for people to kind of come clean. And they're really, with the background investigations that go on to go through these things, they have a pretty good idea who you are when you're walking in. So what they're really trying to find out is whether or not, will you tell the truth, or are you going to continue to, buffalo or work around, a different way, or take, tell the little white lie, so to speak. And they have the ways to figure that out. And if people who lack integrity, and on the loyalty side, people who aren't there to try and help their teammates through certain obstacles and that sort of thing, that's an indication of loyalty. These are the two big words and the two big things that go on that really help the guys that are the drill instructors and evaluators find out who you really are. The other thing that they're doing is they're putting a lot of pressure on you. They'll give you many tasks through the day, and there's no way that you'll ever accomplish all these tasks, but they want to find out how you prioritize. So there's a lot of pressure, and to see how you held up under pressure. If you make it through either the 2 6-week courses after your sophomore or junior year, or at the combined course after your junior year, or a combined course after your senior when you graduate, then doesn't mean you get to go to a basic school, but it does mean that you have successfully skirted the officer candidate school. You've met the screening requirements, and once you are commissioned, you can go to a thing called the basic school. And the basic school is now every single officer in the Marine Corps, without exception, goes to basic school. This is a 6-month school. It's again at Quantico in a different location. And you are now a brand new commissioned second lieutenant. And if you haven't figured out integrity by then, you're really going to have some issues. And I watched that happen to 2 guys in a class that we were having. We were having a test, and these 2 guys were kind of looking at each other, and what they were doing, they were copying off each other's papers to get the questions right. They were gone in a couple of days. We never saw them again. So, and the reason I bring this up is for those of you out there who wonder, what are Marine officers really like? What is the expectation of these young guys and these young gals who come into the environment? And what is the expectation of the system? What are the taxpayers really getting for their money? And who are these people going to be? Are these the kind of people that are going to be in positions of leadership that could conceivably go to conditions that, either humanitarian assistance, disaster relief kind of things where we're saving people, or the other, and lead people and make good decisions under highly stressful circumstances and make as correct decisions as they possibly can, and bring people home, as many home as possible. And I want to point to the end of this where we talk about, there's a saying in the Marine Corps, it's called every Marine is a rifleman first. We all qualify annually because we are all, the mindset of Marines is that we are all in support of that person who is on the ground with the boots on the land, on that objective. Everything around it is in support of that Marine. Unequivocally, end of story. There is no question about it on where your mission and your focus lies. So you could say in that regard, now that's a pretty strong support for what we consider loyalty. You're loyal to that guy on the ground. You'll do anything and everything to meet the mission to take care of that Marine on the ground. So we'll move on. I just want to throw a few pictures up here. Notice, we go through swim quals, and in order to become what is called water safety qualified, a WSQ, a Marine has to be able to float for 1 hour. He has to be able to tread water for 1 hour. And it may not seem like that, but in that gear right there, you're wearing your boots and your full utilities, and we actually learn also how to fill utilities with water and how to tie off the bottom of the trousers and be able to float longer, how to help yourself survive in the water. The guys to the top right are going out on they're going to be dropped in water off of that 53 in the background that you see. These guys are recon guys. Guys in the lower left are just Marines doing what they call like a sand plan here, where they put out what the ground looks like, and they walk through the tactics of how they're going to enter an urban area or a particular area. So it gives them better visual of how they do this. and we had winter training. You know, we go out there, cold, hot, doesn't matter. But the one I really like, is the
I'm
picture to the
fine. How are
lower
you?
right side. The picture to the lower right side, you can see Marines working together. This particular event is called SULE, S-U-L-E, stands for Small Unit Leadership Evaluation. And what they do is a squad of Marines, which is 13 Marines, you have 12, 3 fire teams, 4 men each, and a leader. And over 36 hours, you have these different um, these different
My day
objectives that you
wasn't
have to
wet.
attend over a certain period of time.
It wasn't empty.
Is that something I can? How do I? Hang on a second here. How do I need to mute that.
I think you click on participants and you mute them all.
Okay, let me make sure on participants. Mute all. There we go. All right. Everybody good? Okay, mute all current. Yes. Okay, let me get back here so we can finish this up. I'm almost done. Share screen, get back to where we were just at. And here, do this one. So what happens is every single one of these guys has to act as a leader, and over this 36-hour period, there's no sleep, and they take turns, and you have these objectives, and you have these problem-solving things. And what these guys have done is they walk up to a stack, you know, this 55-gallon drum, these tires, these poles, and they treat it like, you know, this is supposed to be, you know, a couple of your fellow Marines who got injured, and you don't have any way to get them out, and you know, and the helicopters aren't coming, and you have to travel. So, and each problem is different. Nobody gets the same problem. Well, the guy who starts off at the beginning normally has a nice fresh set of Marines that, you know, and it's nice. It's a little bit easier, but imagine what it's like after 30 hours of sleeplessness all the way through the night without, you know, without stopping. Once one problem is done, the next guy gets in there, you know, gets picked out from, you know, from the drill instructor, and they keep going. So you want to talk about some pressure. This is this sifts the wheat from the chaff. So let's get into integrity and loyalty. And the reason I bring all that up and give you some background is for a couple of reasons. I did it so that you can have some understanding and maybe some perspective on what goes on with the people that go into those environments that put their yin-yangs on the line and are willing to do so. It's a calling, and to give us the kind of lifestyle and environments that we live in. And they really don't ask for a whole lot, and they're very driven. And those kind of environments put a lot of pressure on people, and that kind of pressure can have an effect on either one of these items, integrity or loyalty. And why did I pick integrity and loyalty? I think everybody knows that too. It's because integrity and loyalty can be in some ways diametrically opposed to one another. There is a great deal of conflict that can arise when somebody is attempting, you know, or trying to decide for themselves which way they're going to go. And I'm going to assume that everybody has now read this. These are the Marine definitions, and there are a lot of other words that can be used in it too. But I'm trying to, you can see where I'm coming from on all this. So as we move into the discussion here, I'd like you to keep in, you know, in consideration some things. And this doesn't mean you have to follow this particular list of ideas. It's just to try and get the brain juices going. Maybe you already have some things that you want to bring up. But these are the kind of things that we deal with every day in all the environments that we're in, and that can have an effect on our decision making and which direction we go and what we do and how we treat one another. I mean, if we have teams and we're very close to these teams and we've experienced things, you know, very intimately together, a lot of stress, we tend to probably gravitate towards that as opposed to teams we might be competing against. And if we have to make a decision, am I going to have integrity and tell the truth to both teams if something isn't working for both teams, or am I going to now go over here and stick with my team that I know, and I'm not going to walk away from these guys ever? That's not ever going to happen. So you can see how the conflict can rise very quickly. So here are four, I'll give you a minute or so to kind of read through these scenarios. Again, you don't have to use these scenarios, but this might give you an idea of the road that we're going to go down, and give you some, some pause. And really think how difficult, and I'm sure people in this group have experienced this many times over. And it can be a very tough decision to make. So, I'll give you another few seconds. Hopefully everybody has a chance to kind of read through all that. And I point to the last one because there are times as you move into areas, and I'm sure there are people here who are in corporations or environments where there's a certain level of confidentiality, and maybe not to the level that it affects many people, but it's still, there's a level of confidentiality. And when do you break that confidentiality at whatever level it might be at? Or do you, have you taken say, if you are going to break confidentiality, if you're going to break your loyalty, or you've raised your hand and said, I swear I won't do this, or I will do this, you better be able to explain yourself, and you better be able to, and Adrian, I imagine you probably have a legal perspective on this, but we'll get there soon enough. So let's, I think that is the last one for now, and I'm going to come off of the stop share, and I'm just going to open this up. So if anybody has any, immediate thoughts, please step out here and let's get the ball rolling. And hey, John is the first.
I am the first.
Thank you for coming out, John. Thanks.
I after I wrote that first book, I considered, because I had like some serious problems come up in my life after that. And I was thinking, all right, well, if integrity really is everything, why am I experiencing these problems? So the idea of being honest and adhering to moral and ethical principles, and attempting to the best of my ability to live in a state of being whole, undivided, and undiminished, which is one of the definitions out of the dictionary, my favorite, in fact. But that doesn't mean we're not going to have conflicts or problems or setbacks. When it comes to loyalty, though, where you're just, with those last four questions you just showed, now I got another problem. Right. So if I got integrity, adherence to moral and ethical principles, and at the same time I've got loyalty to someone who somehow I'm indebted to, well, now, and if they're doing something unethical, that's an interesting quandary. My answer that comes up for me is don't be indebted. So I have loyalty to people who are subscribed to the same moral and ethical codes as me, more or less. Right. I know ethics is a personal thing. Right. I would do things in business. Give you an example. I have no problem whatsoever in offering someone, like as a salesperson, right, in offering someone a rather high cost educational program if they're looking to learn and have the benefits of what that education could provide. I mean, what's the cost of that? Well, Ben Franklin said, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. That's really expensive, right? So no, I'm not here to co-sign someone's ignorance, and it may be a stretch for them, right, to part with and to exchange a certain amount of money, which another salesperson, okay, so here's the difference in ethics that I'm talking about. Another salesperson would be like, oh, that's like taking people's heads off or something, Look, I've invested over $300,000 into my own education, and I've made back a bit more than that, okay? However, it wasn't because I got the bargain prices or anything. It's because I went for the best, right? So my integrity is that I get to see people as their possibilities, not as their limitations or their past or who they were 5 minutes or an hour ago, right? So I think that's where personal ethics comes in, is knowing that you're doing good and right work. Okay. Now, if someone is not doing good and right work, should one call them out on that, even if they feel like, well, that person's been an ally? Well, they may have been an ally in the past. I've seen people go sideways, like way sideways, like crazy stuff. I mean, drugs, not to mention the absolute crap that mass media is shoving down people's throats, like really wacky, insane stuff. And so as a person who attempts to live with impeccable integrity, I know that was a word that Stuart introduced or reminded us of a couple of days ago. I believe that I have to do the right thing, and if it means the loss of an ally, well, then that's unfortunate. Okay, but I know this is a saying that we've kicked around here in these rooms from time to time, and that is to place principles before personalities. Principles before personalities. Do I do that perfectly? Is there no nepotism in my life whatsoever? Mark, I like you, right? You're one of our facilitators here. You wouldn't be if I didn't, right? So, but again, this isn't like a democracy, right? This is the John Lavenia Success Mastermind. But because I think I know you. I think I know your principles, and I think I know your integrity. Therefore, we can have a nice, loyal friendship here, right? So, where's the line? Where's the line? I think with that question of loyalty, which I've been loyal to a fault at times. You guys ever seen that movie? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm hijacking your talk. You guys ever seen Count of Monte Cristo? Came out, I know there was several versions of it, not the black and white one, the one maybe 15 years ago, whatever it was. And Dantes escapes from the prison. He washes up on the beach. He has the knife fight with the Spanish guy, right? And he spares his life. Right? And the Spanish guy says, I'm your man for life. Right? And Dantes says, I know. Right? So they just had a bond right there. I've had that sort of bond with several people in my life. One such bond, okay, allowed me to be loyal to a fault where this person decided to break every agreement, abandon his wife and kids, unbelievable stuff. I was this guy's brother for like 7-8 years. Cost me millions. Okay. But that's what I would call loyal to a fault. So when I think of loyalty, I think of it as something convenient because I don't have to make new decisions about people because they're already a known ally. So maybe that's my own laziness, right? I don't have to reassess and re-meet somebody every day and refigure out who they are. So maybe that's a bit of laziness on my part, okay? But I would say integrity comes first, loyalty comes second. That's what I would say. 17.5 million people whose lives are at risk, and you get high security clearance, there might be a leak. There might be a leak. That's my thoughts on it. I don't know. We can go on and on with this, but I love you, Mark. Thank you for introducing this not easy topic. So I'll pass the floor.
Thank you, John. And this is exactly why we're having this talk, John. And you obviously get this. It is where is the line that you draw that you have to make a decision. And I would expect, just in response to you, John, if I was going down a path that was not in alignment with the ethics and the mores and the caliber of this environment that you had expected, I'd expect that, hey, I should expect my walking papers. I mean, they should be coming. And anybody who sees it differently, then you're not looking through, in my personal opinion, not looking through the right lens. You have to make a decision at some point. And I would agree with you, John, integrity. And I'm not saying that is the case for every single person, but this is exactly why we have these kind of talks. And that's why we did as second lieutenants. We would actually have these rooms and we'd all do this. And boy, guys, we'd get into these big arguments almost on throwdowns to the floor. I mean, there were some really close calls with people because it's a very passionate discussion. Okay, Adrian, you're next. And after Adrian is Rose and then Jamie.
Oh, fantastic topic, Mark. I think Ego and I are going to come back to this. We were going to talk about ethics at some point. You've really hit the nail on the head here. For me, the problems I've seen, I've been in a heavily regulated industry for many years. The problems I've seen are that you can have all these discussions, but the moment you drop money into the equation, everything goes out of the window. And that is the problem. And that's what we all have to remember dealing with our suppliers and our customers in the future, because unfortunately, people's so-called ethics, their decisions on your questions on a normal day suddenly are warped, and they take a very different view when they're incentivized to do so. And that has been the problem in financial services, to the extent that a broker, a client relationship manager who was supposedly 100% loyal to a client, the moment they were offered incentives to sell large volumes of stocks, for example, they just did it. They were even sending emails to each other, which have been unveiled, saying, let's sell this dog. Who can we sell it to? So they knew what they were doing, and they didn't care anymore about the client. All they could focus on was the figures on the paycheck at the end of the period. So that was one problem. Now imagine that your Marine second lieutenant's also in the system, and he's being incentivized to make sure that the guys in his platoon are selling as much as they can. So suddenly his ethics have gone out of the window as well. And all these people were turning a blind eye in the command chain because it was in their interest to do so. And then that brings me on to your mention of the legal environment. Well, the legal environment should have worked really well. But unfortunately, as soon as money came into the equation again, it didn't. So everyone was saying, yes, great, we need these wonderful whistleblowers to tell everyone what's going on. But the moment they dared to do so, they were absolutely crucified. And it took legislation over many years to protect people from doing what they should do when they knew that there was wrongdoing on a large scale going on in their corporation. They still had to be protected by legislation. On their own bat, none of these companies actually did what they said in their manuals or in their board meetings. Quite the opposite. The moment there was difficulty, they got rid of people and made sure they were given a very hard time. So that's my take on it, Mark, but thanks very much for raising it.
Hey, Adrian, great point. And I'll say one word to everybody here, whistleblowers. You know, anybody understands, you know, when do you stand up and say enough is enough? This is wrong. And I'm stepping up. And then what happens, just what you said, Adrian, people get crucified by the media, by everybody. And some people who you thought you were aligned with now are your worst enemies. It's like, oh my gosh. So this is why, again, we're having this discussion. Hey, Rose, thank you again, Adrian. Rose, you're up, and then Jamie, and then Therese.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Mark, fantastic topic. I thought I was the first one to pop my hand up on this one because I could just feel my blood boiling at certain parts, but then John took it away first. But I have been in advertising, media, marketing, sales for 30 years, my whole life. If anybody's ever seen the show Mad Men, and it was depictive of the late 60s, 70s, where it was drugs, vodka, smoking, loose women, cheating husbands, lying and cheating to the clients. I've seen it all. I've seen corporate officers walked out of the building with a sheriff in handcuffs because of backroom deals that were being done. I've seen our accountant who had a separate bank account and she was funneling money into her own separate account. And this was also the woman who scrutinized my $5 lunch ticket. So we're talking about everything from the 80s and 90s. And thank God, as Adrian mentions, there were supposed to be checks and balances and laws put into place. So we now in corporate America always had to take a test every single year as far as the code of ethics. Those questions you put on the screen just absolutely brought back shivers up my spine about the question and answers we had to answer as corporate officers. And I will echo what John said. Integrity, my ethics, my morals lead my life. They are my beacon. What I am made of, I still have friends for 30 years, but I've watched several people wash their career down the drain because their code of ethics was not in line with my moral values. So echoes to John, Adrian, Mark, you absolutely just got me revved up in this chair today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rose. And I got a word for you, embezzlement. How about that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So in our lives, everybody here has a story. So, and the list is coming on. So I'm just going to keep moving down the chain. Thanks again for sharing, Rose. Jamie, then Therese, then Ace Man. Come on in, Jamie.
Good morning. Great topic. And I could feel my feet, the toes burning from the feet up. And not to be insensitive about friendships, but I kind of treat my friendships as I've got an inventory of friends, and that inventory revolves. And I have a base of friends, and they all are aligned with my morals, principles, my values, and if sometimes I think we find ourselves, we'll make excuses for somebody who we think we'd like to keep in our lives because they may go off the rail a little bit. That's, it's not in line with our morals, our values, our ethics. But to be honest, it's the saying that we talked about. We talked about it many times about, surround yourself with people that help you rise, right? So I was having a conversation with my daughter the other day, and she was complaining about one of her friends, and she was just not being nice and being really disrespectful to a lot of people. And I said, well, that's not, you have a choice. You have a choice. Your choice is you can continue to complain and have that person in your life and disrupt it and your other friends, your base of friends, or you can make a decision and that person is no longer in your base of friends and no longer aligned with your way of thinking. And she kind of looked at me, she goes, well, I like her. I said, I know you like her. I said, but there's more to just liking her. I said, that's kind of a surface thing in my view. I go, but I think you need to reassess what it is you're getting out of that relationship and what it is, what are you bringing to the table and what are they bringing to the table for you? And so back to myself and others in this group, what do I bring to that person? What do they bring to me? Does it benefit me? Does it align with my morals, ethics, my thinking? And if they don't, then, it's sad to say, I have some really great friends. And if it's just two of them, because the rest of them are just, not working out for me and staying in line with me, then so be it. I'll put them on the sideline. And if they may come back, they may not.
Mm-hmm.
But thanks for this. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jamie. And the word I get out of your conversation there was alignment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
pulling
Good
people
one.
together and that kind of feed from the same trough, so to speak, as you do. All right. Next up is Therese, then Aceman, and then Glenn. Come on out, Therese. Let's see what you got.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mark. That's a very thought-provoking subject to kind of funnel down the week. Yeah, it's heavy all the time, and that one's a good one. So several years ago, before I went on the wholesale side of the fine jewelry business, I worked 12 years in a very, very high-end business. And of course, 12 years is a long time, right? And so there were, I think, 4 others that started around the same time, and we became very, very close friends. And the one of us kind of funneled off onto the accounting side of things. So she, their accountant that they had had for 50 years, retired, but taught her the ropes. So anyway, she had built this great trust with the owners and with all of the team. And then 2 others and myself, we were kind of what we called the breakfast club. So we'd come early every morning and we'd have our time together, and I just really, really close. We bought jewelry that matched. I mean, we were like the team, right? And high-fived each other, throughout the years. Well, so anyway, long story short, right after my divorce, about a year after my divorce, I decided that I had this huge, amazing, gorgeous ring, and it didn't really make much sense for a single girl to be walking around with such a ring. So I decided that I was gonna, my company, of course, if you buy a product there, they're stand behind it, right? If you need to bring it back, you can bring it back, they'll resell it for you. So I went to her in confidence and said, hey, I'm contemplating this, but I want to keep it on the down low. I don't want one of the other employees to buy my ring and be wearing my ring. That would be horrible. And so I said, will you see what we can do on this and kind of keep it under the wraps? Absolutely. So she came to me like an hour later and said, look, we can give you X for that ring. We'll give you X for that ring. And I was like, wow, that was fast. You already spoke with, so-and-so and so-and-so. And so anyway, yes. And I said, okay, let me just process this emotionally and I think we'll do this. And so a week or 2 or 3 went by and I just needed a little more time to make sure that was the decision I wanted, to make. And I went back to her and I said, look, I said, I want to do this and I'm kind of curious, is there any way this is what I paid. I understand, blah, 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 but can we do a little bit more? Do I have some negotiation room? And so she said, give me a day or two. Let me, so-and-so's in a better mood today. Maybe we can make this work. So anyway, long story short, she came back to me and it was, in the tune of like $5,000 more than what the original offer was. And so I was like, well, that's kind of weird. Okay. And I said, well, let me be with that. And I mean, I've been there for a long time. These people one person was in my wedding. They were at my wedding. I mean, they were my life, right? We did everything together, the owners, whatever, home parties, etc. So I was like, you know what? Why am I talking to her? I should talk to them. Like, why that big difference? What's going on? So I went to them. I went to the owners and I just said, hey, chatted with them a little bit. And I just said, hey, I'm just kind of curious why this big difference in price. And they were embarrassed because obviously they didn't know anything about it. And so they came back to me and offered me X. So I took X and she kind of got moved out of the equation, but in a very professional, not a weird way or anything. No one was, I wasn't thinking anything anyway. And so about a year later, I left. I went to the wholesale side, moved away. And another year later, all of a sudden this big bomb went off. So that one moment, me going to them and communicating with them because of my loyalty to them, started them investigating her. And anyway, it turns out she had been embezzling, I don't know, it was something in the tune of like $600,000 over the like 12 years. And at some point they just stopped, they quit investigating and she just disappeared. But anyway, there it is. My instinct said to speak with them, and I did out of my loyalty to them, even though she was my close confidant, and there you go. We still don't even know what happened, but nobody talks about it. She's just gone.
Thank you, Therese. Isn't that interesting that, embezzlement comes up again. I see a trend developing here, but isn't it interesting that your loyalty now, and actually loyalty as a component, I suppose, of your integrity is what compelled you to go to those that are kind of running the show, and you want to just have a conversation with them, totally innocent, totally professional, and then the world comes apart for this girl, and actually you probably saved their bacon because of what you did. So I mean, that's a good ending. I mean, in my book.
Yeah.
Not for her.
Very intense. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, Therese, great story. And it's a perfect story for this. Okay, Ace Man, then Glenn, and then Joe and Gina. So, hey, Ace Man, how you doing, man? Oops. Okay. Ace Man, you there? Ace, where are you at?
Hello.
Yeah, there you go. We got you. Okay.
If the microphone is turned on, it works a lot better. So just make that mental note for everybody. And anyway, this is a really good subject for me. It's part of my life every day, and I keep my friend base like really small because I'm pretty picky on who I deal with. Because if they're not honest and legit, I don't want anything to do with them. And it's another fellowship I belong to. It's like the instrumental thing to be successful. You have to have a rigorous honesty, So if you don't have that in your life, you're struggling to get through every day. And at the end of the day, you have to lay down and check with yourself. You know what I mean? When I was a much younger guy, I was working and this incident took place. And initially I thought I told the truth about it, but there was this other guy it was at work, and this guy was making a big deal about it, and he was accusing me of lying. And it's like, no, I'm not lying. This is exactly what happened. And the guys that were working with me said, yeah, that's what happened. And then we got to going on a couple days later, and I realized that I was wrong. What that guy said did take place, but at the point I was backed into a corner, I didn't ever change my story. And this was like 30 years ago. So this one guy went to bat for me and he stuck up for me. I was just like 22 years old or something. And then I realized I was wrong and I never confessed. And to this day, he's dead now, you know, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. And I wished for the longest time I would have had the opportunity to make it right. But that's exactly how important integrity is, you know. If you can't own your stuff at some point, like I'll never be able to clear that from my conscience because I didn't address him about it. So I just hope people realize that how important having integrity is. And in my business, in the oil and gas business, man, there's some slick operators, and that's what's taught me more than anything to really pay attention to what they're saying and how they're saying it. And I've seen guys make millions and millions and millions and be as crooked as a dog's hind leg. And I've also seen other guys be fraudulent and fake invoices and build for like building big reservoirs and shit like this, millions of dollars, and got busted and ended up going to prison, you know, and they deserve to go to prison. If you can't, and we make good money in this business, I mean, in the energy business, if you can't live on a few $100,000 a year or $500,000 a year or $150,000 a year, there's hundreds of examples of the kind of money that you make in this business. You have to start lying and cheating and stealing. That's just simple greed. And there's no place for it in your life. And at the end of the day, when you check out, you're going to answer that stuff. And if going to prison was on the table, then you deserve it, you know? So I just hope that, I guess life is life and you learn a lot of valuable lessons, you know, but for over 30 years, I've regretted not changing my story. And I'll get, you know, I use it as a strength, a building block and a reminder to never get stuck in that position again. So that's all I got. I just think integrity is like the main thing and main reason for anybody's success. You know, it goes hand in hand with hard work and getting, you know, that's all I got. Bye.
Thanks, Ace. Appreciate that. And I suspect that everybody here has a story very much like that. I think the word hindsight, was it the phrase hindsight is 2020? And we can all go back. We probably have little faux pas in our life that we can refer to. And when we're young, those kind of things, that's probably the time in life to make those, you know, those errors and recover from them. And you had a great story. Thank you. Hey, Glenn, and sorry for anybody who had your hand up. I think I double clicked this and I caused a couple of hands to go down. So if you were thinking about coming in, redo your hand. And yeah, Joe, thank you, Gina. But right now it's Glenn. Come on out, Glenn. Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel. First order of business, Ace Man. If you were a dishonorable man, you would feel nothing about that event from 30 years ago. I'll just say that to you. This conversation that we've been having today, Mark, it kind of reminds me in a funny way that there are certain advantages to having been raised Baptist. In this particular context, what that means for me is I was raised with this hugely wide right and wrong streak, guilt streak, conscience, whatever you want to call it. And I don't regret having grown up and having been raised that way, because what it means for me is that this has never been a question of these sorts of things, questions of integrity, of honesty. It's never really been a question like, well, what should I do? Very simple. Do the right thing. Friends will come and go. There's 7.5 billion people on this planet. Do the right thing. And there have been times when I've lost relationships. There have been times, I think particularly of a situation that I was in over the course of a number of years in my life, where I was associated with a leader, or should I say a so-called leader, who didn't do the right thing. particularly with regard to not only to me directly, but to other people in a business group. And it reminded me that about the old saying, right? It takes years to build a reputation and seconds to destroy one. And this person whom I had known and trusted for years, destroyed their reputation with me in a matter of moments. And so and I'm surely not the only one. I have to do the right thing. We have to do it's because it's what our conscience, it's what our heart, what our sense, our intellect, what our sense of integrity has us to do. And I'm profoundly grateful to be, and I'll leave it with this, I'm profoundly grateful to be a participating active member of a group, a family like this, where virtually everyone in this group is motivated by a desire, almost a need to do the right thing. And even beyond all of that, profoundly grateful for a man like John Lavenia, who in every word and action of his life reminds us what it looks like to live a life with integrity. Thanks, John, and thanks to every one of us. Back to you, Mark.
Hey, thanks, Glenn. Yeah, reputation. Funny how that word comes up again too. Yeah, and why give somebody further ammunition to destroy one's own reputation? And keep it above board and keep it real. So good points. And I get you, brother. You take that away, and it's hard to get back. We have a saying in Marine Corps, says Marine Corps has a long memory. And once you violate the code, so to speak, man, trying to get that back, it's a nightmare. Really is. You just can't. They're just you be in a foxhole together, and you got each other's backs. It's people don't they really don't like violations of that kind. Thank you. Joe and Gina are up, and then Toba.
Hi, everybody. This is Joe and Gina, obviously. Hope you're all having a great day. I love you guys, and thanks so much for everything you're pouring from your hearts. Everything helps each of us to learn as we go along. Basically, I just wanted to share that I'm somebody who doesn't think twice. When a trusted friend needs something, I just don't even have to be asked twice. But there are pros out there, and there are people who find people like me, and they kind of profit you, and they you know that you'll be that type of a person. And that, to me, you just kind of, I guess you have to throw it up and say it's a lesson, but try not to let it happen again. And like you said, Mark, it's a kind of situation where, once you've been violated in that way, you just get stronger because you learn the type of people you can trust and believe in, and then you value them so much more. You just begin to see through people a little bit better, and you become stronger. And the people that you do help, and they're faithful and they appreciate it, it becomes a blessing. I mean, it makes you feel better almost than it makes them feel. When you could be there for them and help them out, and they have your back too, and it. And it's always a good thing to have. But those people are rare. And I think in this group, we have a lot of people that are that way. I think that if one of us is down, or if we need something, or if something is not working for us and we're going to be dispelled for, maybe we don't have finances, or we don't have this, or we don't have something, I think all of us get together and somehow make it all stay together. We seem to be that type of a family. And that's why it's so good that John put us together and opened this door for us all to be in one group. And, I was just thinking last night, I was watching a thing on the internet about Harvey Weinstein. Boy, does that come and touch a spot, how people just turned a deaf eye about, deaf ear about what was going on with him, and all his professionals just turned it back, and all these people are being taken advantage of. And now that he went to jail, all of a sudden their heads are in the sand. They don't even want to talk about what they did, and they're living with watching all this stuff happen, and they did nothing about it. And I'm really against trafficking. I try to help the community as much as I can on human trafficking. And that's another one. I've heard story on top of story and read books about people who had a boyfriend or had a child or had a whatever, relationship with someone, and the person profiled them, and they weaned them into trafficking, and they didn't even know what it was until after they found somebody else that had the same thing. I mean, wow, we have had victims of politics and even the police. You know, sometimes the police have to turn a deaf eye and look at those guys. They now are in jail, you know, and they're up maybe for the rest of their lives for something that they've done. So, you know, loyalty is something that's important, but sometimes it could do you more harm than good. So we have to kind of pay attention on what we're loyal to and the kind of people that we're having to make that choice with. But this is a great subject, boy. I think it's touched everybody here. So thank you so much for talking about that, Mark. It was really awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Gina. And a couple words came to mind in this case, Gina. First of all, the consequence. There's going to be a consequence eventually for certain things, whenever that comes. The other thing, you mentioned loyalty, and here I think in how you talk about some of your relationships, and in this environment particularly, symbiosis. I think we have an environment here where actually loyalty and integrity are relatively close together and not necessarily in conflict. This is a great family, it's a great group, and we're seeing this enacted today again. Thank you again, Gina.
You're welcome.
And I see Joe in the background there. He's just hanging out. So
He is.
yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Tova, you're up, and I don't see anybody else. So if you're going to jump in here, you might do it now because it's about 9:51. Go ahead, Tova.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mark, for that interesting topic. There's a quote from Warren Buffett, and he said, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and just 5 minutes to ruin it. So if you think about that, you will do things differently. So the organization I work for, we are very big on ethics and compliance. As a matter of fact, we have Ethics and Compliance Day every year. And this is where you are allowed to talk about your dilemma. Then you are reminded about the importance of ethics and compliance. As a matter of fact, every year you are asked to fill what we call conflict of interest register, where you have to declare where the potential conflict that you might have. Even in the GPA is a goal and performance track, which you normally do at the beginning of the year. You must have it there is 0 E and C issue. So it's so important that we even have a department called Business Integrity Unit. So what this department does was just to sniff around and try to get out what is happening within the organization in case there's anyone playing tricks or doing dirty, involving shady business. So that's what they do. So it is really, really big in my organization. So I will leave you with a quote. This is just a short contribution. And if you see fraud and you don't say it's a fraud, then you are a fraud. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Tova, for bringing it up. And it is interesting that so much in humanity, in the corporate environment and such, we have, I don't want to look at quality assurance or quality control as a negative. I think that's very much a positive because it's just another set of eyes or doing. But when you look at parts of organizations that do things to help prevent fraud, isn't it interesting that we actually have to have those kind of things, that we are worried that those amongst us might be having ethical or moral issues with regard to the others that they work with in these team environments. I just find that kind of interesting. So it's, we're human, not everybody's perfect, we make mistakes. And I think that's just a kind of reality check for all of us. All right, Mandy, you're up. Mandy, where are you?
I'm up. I'm here now.
Right, there you go, Mandy. Thank you.
I can speak to you. I love your talks. Integrity to me is about being honest. That was one I got out of the dictionary, just being honest and having high moral principles. And honesty has always been really important to me. And one of the times it tends to be, I found it difficult, is being a middle manager in quite a few occasions. you have the loyalty of your team, and I have a loyalty to my team as well, and they have a loyalty back to me. But management want to do things, a bit like what Toby was saying, management want to do things and they're never honest. There is never, and I'm sure that the people in higher management would be able to explain this, I know, but it tends to be that if you want to change what's happening within your group or within a company, they'll talk about it at that level, but a lot of the time it's never talked at with the people it's going to affect. You'll find something out that's going to affect a person in your team, that they might lose their job or that something's going to happen, and you're not supposed to say anything. You're supposed to have the collective responsibility of the people that are talking about it. I understand the collective responsibility. I also have that loyalty to, and to me, the honesty is to tell my team. I've never understood why they can't engage people with it, because change management helps better when you engage people who it's going to affect. So I try to find a middle point where I won't tell them directly, because that would be going against what I have already been told. And obviously it depends on how confidential the information is I've been told. But I would just say, yeah, if I were you, I'd look for something else or something along those lines. But I've had strong relationships with my teams, and I find that really hard. The other thing is, going back to your 4 items, I think it would depend on the damage that it's going to do by telling them or not telling them, and what sort of damage. So for the first 2, it would be a case of talking to them. So you could talk to your friend, but I would probably talk to the person that's embezzling the funds and tell them that you know what they're doing, and that they need to stop before you're going to go and shop them necessarily. That's a tricky one, but the third one was a really tricky one, about if you've got somebody you love, someone else you love, what do you do then? The last one wasn't so difficult because it was the same as John. I think I would find a leak coming on for the 17.5 million people. And obviously from your side, something that came to my mind straight away, and this is probably a couple of dangerous points to go to, but it's not for a deep conversation as such, and that is the current governments in either the UK and America at the moment, and the amount of integrity that we may or may not feel we've got in those governments, especially the UK one at the moment. But also it brings to mind Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning, and what they did. And I'm sure if Julian could have his time again, he probably wouldn't leak what he leaked. But I do believe at the time that he leaked it, he was leaking it for the right reasons. So where's the honesty there? Who did it damage to a great degree? That obviously is a long talk for another day, but it did bring them to mind. But I think, like Glenn said, you have to do what you think is the right thing. And otherwise, as Aceman said, you can't live with yourself. Do the right thing. And that's it.
Thanks, Mandy. And again, great points. Not in a conflict of interest per se, but just internal conflict. This is such an emotional topic because these 2 particular, issues for us are in some ways diametrically opposed depending on the circumstance. And so we're sitting there trying to figure out which way do we really bend and which way we go. I'm going to share my screen one last time here, and I'm going to leave you guys with a saying, and we'll end it with that. I'll just put this up here for a minute, and you can read this. This came from Dwight Eisenhower, and I tend to look at it this way. Think of, each person may have their own priority, but the one thing about integrity is you don't have to cover up a lie with another lie with another lie. And if you're true to yourself, people, I think, have a pretty good idea about reading between the lines, and they can see that. And if you think you have some, shady or questionable relationships, you may want to reassess, what the quality of that relationship is, and what are the things that really hold that together. And that's it for the talk today. John, if you'd like to come on out here and take over. I thank everybody for participating. And if you want more, please, get ahead of me online somewhere else, and we can continue this conversation another time. Or if you want to take this topic to another level, another month or 2 down the road, let me know that we can do something else. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark. Just a quick reminder, we do have Brand Builder with Shannon Lavenia tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern U.S. time. So tune in there or catch the replay. And if you're seeing this on YouTube or Facebook and you think you deserve actual membership here, go to jlsuccessmastermind.com and grab you one. I will catch you guys real soon. Thanks again, Mark. Thanks, everyone, for being here.
Bye.